Jimmy Kimmel got emotional yesterday. This is still a guy in his early 30s. Doesn't mean we have to like him. I didn't like him. But I think if you're a human being, that's the way you react to anybody getting murdered. Like them. Jimmy Kimmel said something, Leonard, that I want to hear you respond to. He didn't make it about himself. He said the show's not important. Something else is. Have a listen to this.
This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this. Yeah!
So what does he mean by that?
He's being humble. He's saying that he said he's a small part of something bigger.
You're right. He is being humble. But this is a bigger issue than just the Jimmy Kimmel show. This is literally cancel culture. If you don't, now it'd be one thing if Jimmy Kimmel made a very inappropriate death joke about Charlie Kirk, which, by the way, he didn't do. He would never do. But if somebody, and I've said this on the air, if you mocked the death of Charlie Kirk or you made jokes about it, you reap what you sow. If you represent a company, they have the right to fire you. Now, that's not always the case. I think there were some firings across the country that were not justified. But Jimmy Kimmel didn't do any of that stuff. And he said this show is not what's important. What's important is that we should be living in a country where we can make jokes about political figures and not worry about the repercussions of it, because we can't be living in an oligarchy or a dictatorship. Sadly, right now, we are.
The show is important. I mean, it brought millions of viewers, millions of opinions to this very subject. And you have Brendan Carr talking, obviously, like a mafia guy. Like,
yeah, we're going to get to
that. Do this easy way or the hard way, you know. And that's a threat from someone in a very, very high position. Mm-hmm. And none of it, in my opinion, none of it looks like America. None of it.
I agree with you, and we're going to get to Brendan Carr in a moment because I do want to talk about him. But, you know, it's so interesting how in most of Jimmy Kimmel's jokes, they're very funny, but they're also partly truthful. And he brings up the Epstein files here. Listen to this.
He did his best to cancel me. Instead, he forced millions of people to watch the show. That backfired bigly. He might have to release the Epstein files to distract us from this now.
So funny, yet so true. The irony of it, you know, Donald Trump and his administration willing to do anything and everything they can so they don't have to talk about the Epstein files because we know Donald Trump is in them. And he's right.
There is some quick breaking news on the Epstein files. In Arizona, the Adelita Grijalva took the special session. She won the seat. She said she's going to vote. She will be the final vote in the House to order them to release the Epstein files. So I don't think the vote's taken place yet, but that's coming.
Yeah, and listen, let me be very clear, and I'm going to say something that I think all of you already know. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. Kash Patel was asked multiple times, a friend of the show, by Eric Swalwell.
Eight times, I think?
7 or 8 times, Eric Swalwell asked Kash Patel a very simple question under oath, which was, did you tell Pam Bondi that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files? Now, if he didn't, he would immediately say no.
Just like you or I would.
Right. But the reason why he refused to answer the question is because the answer is obviously yes. And he knew that he was under oath. So Kimmel brings up the Epstein files. It's amazing, you know, how so many in the media stop talking about this with so many other things in the news. But I will not stop talking about it.
They're afraid.
Yeah, I will not stop talking.
They're going to get attacked just like every other station gets attacked.
And the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell is getting the preferential treatment and was sent to Club Med, for all of you MAGA idiots out there that talk about sex trafficking, and by the way, I'm on your side. Sex trafficking is terrible. I know Leonard agrees with that. But if you're one of those people that constantly talked about sexual abuse and Hollywood elitists that are in the Epstein files, you have zero credibility now because your guy's in there. And if you're talked about sex trafficking, look at the way they've treated Maxwell. And I actually believe there was sex trafficking going on at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know if you agree with me on this.
Let me ask you a question. If you're the kind of person on the right who thinks there's nothing wrong with what the Epstein did and Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump, and you make excuses for them, Are you not the same person? Are you not the same kind of person, or am I just making too many subjective assumptions?
It's true. No, you're right.
You have to be the same kind of person.
Listen,
to think that's okay.
I always talk about consistency on this show, and I've always said that if you beat police officers during Black Lives Matter's protest, you're just as guilty as anybody who beat a police officer on January 6th, and I would never characterize you as a hostage and a patriot. By the way, did Joe Biden pardon any of those people during Black Lives Matter? I'm just curious. Did he? No, I don't think so.
Did you see the Uvaldi shooting?
Yeah.
How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, Uvaldi.
Uvaldi shooting.
Yeah.
Okay, so according to the MAGAs, if you walk in a place peacefully, you're not there for trouble. If you saw the video of the shooter on that day that shot those kids, he walked in peacefully. He walked down the hallway. He was very calm. He was looking around, and then he went and he murdered children. So what does it matter if you're walking around peacefully? What does it matter if the police let you in? What does it matter if you came there just for history because it's a historic site, and then you incite violence? You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Taking a dump on the speaker's desk, things like that, stealing documents. It doesn't matter how you entered. Why are they making such a big thing about it?
For the record, though, if I had the opportunity and it wasn't against the law, I would probably want to take a dump on Marjorie Taylor Greene's desk. But anyway.
What kind of legs did Robbie say she had?
Strong horse legs.
Strong horse
legs.
Yeah.
Annoyed AF on the YouTube Super Chat. We're starting that up. Says, side note, the Trump administration is trying to dismantle the Violence Against Women's Act. By the way, I agree with that. It's funny, you won't hear Riley Gaines criticizing Donald Trump about that today. She'll continue for the last 3 years.
He would do away with the 19th Amendment if he thought he could.
He probably could.
That gave women the right to vote. He would do away with it. I'm sure he would.
Speaking of the Constitution, speaking of freedom of speech, let's talk a little bit about Brendan Carr, who, by the way, is a bold-faced liar and a coward. He happens to be running the FCC, and he's weaponized it to go after Donald Trump's political opponents. I love what Jimmy Kimmel said about him yesterday. It's why I love Jimmy Kimmel. He does not hold back. Here's Jimmy Kimmel's thoughts on Brendan Carr.
10 years ago, this sounded crazy. Brendan Carr, the chairman of the FCC, telling an American company, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, and that these companies can find ways to change conduct and take action on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead, in addition to being a direct violation of the First Amendment, is not a particularly intelligent threat to make in public. Ted Cruz said he sounded like a mafioso. Although, I don't know, if you want to hear a mob boss make a threat like that, you have to hide a microphone in a deli and park outside in a van with a tape recorder all night long. This genius said it on a podcast. Brendan Carr is the most embarrassing car Republicans have embraced since this one. And that's saying something.
Cybertruck with Trump on the side.
The FCC.
Yeah, he was showing the Cybertruck, the Elon Musk Cybertruck. Agree with everything he just said about Brendan Carr, who's a coward, and he's weaponized the FCC. It's despicable. It's disgusting. And Carr is human scum, is what he is.
Did he give what they call prima facie evidence to all the lawsuits? Like, the lawsuits are going to follow. Some may wait until, there's an opportunity or Trump doesn't have so much influence. But I think they're all going to be sued for millions, maybe billions of dollars. And didn't Brendan Carr just give them the evidence that they're claiming they have? I mean, that's the way I look at it. I think he did a terrible disservice talking, hey, this is a really nice broadcast station. Be a shame if something happened to it, but I could help you with that. Isn't that what he said?
It's exactly what he said and was referring to. And, it's interesting because the right, people on the right, they want to talk about how Jimmy Kimmel didn't have ratings. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Donald Trump did Jimmy Kimmel a favor. Jimmy Kimmel talked about that a little bit.
He's gunning for our journalists, too. He's suing them. He's bullying them. Over the weekend, his foxy friend Pete Hegseth announced a new policy that requires journalists with Pentagon press credentials to sign a pledge promising not to report information that hasn't been explicitly authorized for release. That includes unclassified information. They want to pick and choose what the news is. I know that's not as interesting as muzzling a comedian, but it's so important to have a free press, and it is nuts that we aren't paying more attention to it. Walter Cronkite must be spinning in his grave right now. He's dead, right? Yeah. Look, I never imagined.
Walter Cronkite is, but Walter Cronkite was a legend in the industry. And, he's Donald Trump did do him a favor, ratings per se, but it is true. Do we want to live in a country where it's like Russia, where if you are a journalist and you criticize leadership, you lose your job, you lose your livelihood.
They put him in jail in Russia.
In some cases even kill
And if they
them.
won't shut up after that, they might fall down the stairs.
And this is how it starts. This is how it starts. And finally, I think this is one of the best points that Jimmy Kimmel made last night, and he made a lot of good ones.
It was a good monologue.
But the difference between Donald Trump and so many people that were in his seat prior to is that they don't celebrate in other people's misery. Joe Biden didn't do that. Barack Obama didn't do that. I don't think George W. Bush did that. But Donald Trump does. He literally celebrates Americans that lose their livelihoods. And why? As Jimmy Kimmel put it, because he can't take a joke. Listen to this.
And I am a tiny part of the Disney Corporation. They welcomed me back on the air, and I thank them for that. That unfortunately, and I think unjustly, this puts them at risk. The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke.
This is how petty our president is. Jimmy Kimmel is 150% correct. This isn't just about Jimmy Kimmel. Listen, Jimmy Kimmel would have been just fine. He's got a lot of money. He would have got a gig elsewhere. But there's a lot of people that work behind the scenes, and a lot of those people are living paycheck to paycheck. Not everybody is making the big bucks over there. And they would have lost their jobs as well. And Donald Trump would have been not only okay with it, he would have celebrated it. And MAGA would have celebrated it, where hundreds of people would have lost their livelihood and their jobs that have been working for Jimmy Kimmel for years. This is who Donald Trump is. And I've been trying to say this ever since Donald Trump, maybe a couple months into his first presidency back in 2016. He only cares about himself. He only cares about his own grievances, and he doesn't care about other people. And this is just another perfect example of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the main difference between, not the main difference, but a big difference between us and people who are on the right wing and the MAGAs is they are proud to have no compassion. They wear it proudly that they have no empathy. Empathy is the basis from which America was born, because we cared about other people. We cared about their problems. We cared about the people who built this country that came from Italy and Germany and Ireland and the immigrants. That's who built this country. And now they just want them out, and they don't care. They're proud. Who's proud not to have empathy, not to have compassion for other human beings, not to have simple kindness that most human beings have since they're children?
And we could start by talking about how dangerous Fox News is, Newsmax, OAN. We can talk about how dangerous it was that Fox News lied over and over again and said that Dominion voting machines were the reason why Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. They paid almost $900 million for it, but I feel like every single day they spread propaganda and hate. And I'm not saying that left-wing entities never do that either, but it seems to be happening, at least these days, far more on the right than the left. I would argue Jimmy Kimmel has never incited violence the way Donald Trump has. Jimmy Kimmel has never made jokes about murder. Jimmy Kimmel never called Barack Obama magic Negro. That's what Rush Limbaugh did on his radio program. And I will go back to Charlie Kirk, and I will say this. Jimmy Kimmel never spread hateful rhetoric the way that Charlie Kirk did. Jimmy Kimmel never asked his viewers to donate to a guy who just attempted to murder Paul Pelosi. Charlie Kirk did that. Jimmy Kimmel never said the Civil Rights Act was a bad thing and a mistake.
He never spread lies either. A lot of what Charlie Kirk said was lies.
Of course. He never, called Martin Luther King Jr. a bad guy. Charlie Kirk did that. Jimmy Kimmel didn't do any of the stuff that Charlie Kirk did and spread bigotry and hate and making millions of dollars off that. Jimmy Kimmel makes money because he's an entertaining comedian. That could be subjective. If you don't like him, you don't have to watch. I actually think Jimmy Kimmel, number one, is a good guy. He's got compassion. There's been plenty of times where he's been emotional on the air because he cares about people. He's proven that. Even Charlie Kirk, when he got choked up about it yesterday. And he's funny. And I think he's very talented.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
They have a president who says, and I don't consider him my president, even though he is the president, but they have a president who says, I hate my opponents. I hate liberals. They're crazy. There's something wrong with them. You would never hear Joe Biden saying that, or Kamala Harris, or Barack Obama, or George Bush, or George W. Bush. None of them. Bill Clinton. I can keep going back as far as you want. You can't find anybody who spoke in that manner. And so Trump likes the division. He likes to hate his opponents. And if you're okay with that, like I said before, does that make you one of them? If they're okay with the hatred and they're like, yeah, we hate him too. Aren't you the same as him with a dark heart?
I completely agree with you. And I'm at the point now where if you voted for Donald Trump and you're not willing to make a mistake, then I think there's something wrong with you. I'm willing to have a conversation.
They're the same as him.
Yeah, I just think there's something wrong with you. And, some people say, I couldn't vote for Kamala. Listen, I don't think Kamala's perfect either, but I think there's a fine line difference from a moral compass perspective and many other perspectives. I just don't get it, ladies and gentlemen. I do want to open up the phone lines, and I want to get your thoughts on Jimmy Kimmel last night, his monologue. He did exactly what I thought he would do. He showed a lot of compassion.
It was a great monologue.
He didn't necessarily apologize for anything, but he explained that he did not celebrate Charlie Kirk's murder. He was making a joke about Donald Trump, and he did not mean it to be interpreted that way. And by the way, it shouldn't have been interpreted that way. I think Jimmy Kimmel said all the right things yesterday. And quite frankly, I love the guy.
It's like
speaking of points not well taken, let's go to Herb. Herb is next up
boy.
on PTL. Hello, Herb. Good afternoon.
I need to ask you a serious question.
Okay.
Oh boy, that'd be the first time.
Because I don't know the answer to it, or at least I'm not sure of the answer.
Okay, I'll answer anything. Go ahead.
The day of and the day after, I think Charlie Kirk got shot on a Wednesday. Am I correct? It was a Wednesday?
I don't know what day it was, but I know I was on the air when it happened.
Okay, but were you on the radio air?
Yes, I was.
Yes,
on the radio.
about 8 minutes into the show. Yes.
So I will answer Herb's question. Herb, the answer is yes. You could go back and you could listen to the show that I did. It actually happened in real time when I was on the air. So I hope I answered your question. Is there anything else you'd like to ask? And by the way, why are you asking that?
But the reason why I say that is because I tuned into your radio show and I didn't get anything. And I tuned in.
So Herb, let me fill you in.
Listen. It might have been my radio. I'm not saying it's your fault.
It might have been your MAGA radio. So Herb, I'll try to answer your question. Okay.
And the other thing
hold on, Herb. You can ask me another question. Herb, you can ask me. Herb, you can ask me another question. No problem. Just give me a second to answer. Okay. Herb, not only did I talk about it, but it was the entire show. 5 minutes into the show, my producer did a good job in giving me the information. I watched it in real time like everybody else was. I actually got emotional, Herb. And it was a very difficult show to do. You can go back and you can watch it and on YouTube.
You were watching it live, and
so Herb,
it was hard to watch.
I know you're on YouTube, but I was listening on the radio.
Okay, well, we're also on the radio, so I don't know what you mean by that.
I know that, but that day you were on the radio, right?
I would assume so, unless we had technical issues. Nobody complained to me.
No, that's what I'm saying, Brian. I think you had technical issues.
Okay, Herb, you're wasting our time. Even if that was true, which I don't believe it is. Who cares?
I didn't know if it was me or if it was your radio station.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was, I thought that the reason why they were upset with Jimmy Kimmel was because he came on and he made a comment about the fact that this was MAGA that had him shot. The person that shot Charlie Kirk was MAGA. I thought that's why.
Okay, so there's so first of all, he never said MAGA shot Charlie Kirk. Those are not the words that he used. Number two, the joke that he made about Donald Trump, I am told, his lack of mourning is what got the White House extremely upset, and they lied, and they said that he was making jokes about Charlie Kirk's murder, which he never did. Those are lies being put forth, saying that Jimmy Kimmel was celebrating the death. By the way, you're a MAGA Republican. Can you name me one prominent Democrat, just one, that was celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, because a lot of people on the right lie. When I did the Piers Morgan show, Riley Gaines lied. Can you please quote one person that is a registered Democrat, that is a politician, who, quote, celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk? Or maybe you can't. I don't know. But I'm just curious.
No, I never. I mean, they said some things that were probably they shouldn't have said, but I don't know if anybody would actually.
Correct,
You know,
right. Now, it's your opinion that some people might have said things they shouldn't have said. That's your opinion, which you're entitled to. But what I'm trying to bring up is the fact that there are people on the far right, including Donald Trump and others, that have literally quoted as saying Democrats and elected officials are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. I don't agree with Ilhan Omar's comments, but she did not say she celebrated or was gleeful or happy that Charlie Kirk was murdered. The right are lying to you, Herb. They are not.
Listen. I listen to you. I listen to other people. I don't listen to any one station. I listen to CNN, MSNBC. I watch Fox News. I watch them all.
You're making my point.
Brian, I'm making up my own mind. Really, I do.
Okay, so I'm asking you. I understand. I understand that. But Herb, can you name one prominent Democrat official?
No, I can't.
So why? Okay, I appreciate that. So why?
Why in the context that you're talking about? When you
so why are they saying that then, Herb? That's my point. Will you call out the people on the right, including the President of the United States, that are claiming that Democrats in office are, quote, celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk? Will you call them out for their lies?
Well, I don't need to call them out. You always want somebody to blame somebody.
No, I want somebody to. No.
His idea.
No, Herb, you're making the point. You're making the point for me, Herb. The right never takes accountability for anything. People were up in arms because of Jimmy Kimmel's joke. But yet, so many Republicans out there, including the President of the United States, is lying, and you won't, or you don't want them to take any responsibility for their lies. Why is it that people like you always want the left to apologize? They want Al Franken to be fired because of maybe a borderline inappropriate photo. But when Donald Trump lies about the 2020 election, when he lies about the jobs report that came out, when he fires people because it doesn't help him politically, all the things that Donald Trump does and says, and all the things he lies about, and I'm giving you a perfect example right now. There are people on the right, elected officials, Mark Wayne Mullen, Donald Trump, there are many others, even on the Piers Morgan show, I had to deal with this, that are saying that Democrat officials are celebrating his death. The reason why you can't name one is because not one Democrat in office has done that, yet you're not willing to call it out and say it's wrong. Oh, why should I have to say that? Why? You know what? Because
well, let me ask you this, Brian.
A question. Yeah,
let me ask you this.
Of course.
Are you willing to admit the fact that Jimmy Kimmel's numbers over the last several years have gone way down?
Okay, so I'm going to answer. Are you going to let me answer? Are you going to let me answer? Are you going to let me?
One more thing.
Oh, no. We do one at a time. No. You don't run the show. I do. One at a time. You're not going to ask me two questions at once. First of all, who the hell cares in context what Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are? Who cares?
It's irrelevant.
Whether his numbers went down or not, and I don't study Jimmy Kimmel's audience numbers, who the hell cares? I asked you about Republicans in office, like the President of the United States lying to the American people. And you care what people say on Twitter about Jimmy Kimmel's numbers? What the hell is wrong with you?
The president was blaming the left before they had any information. They didn't even know who the shooter was or what happened. And he was on TV blaming the left.
Herb, why do you care if people on...
Can I tell you why?
Why do you care if people on social media are talking about his ratings? Who cares?
Brian, listen to me.
I'm listening.
I don't care. However, the Nielsen polls have shown over the last 5 years,
who cares?
His audience has dropped.
Who cares?
And
who cares? Why do you care? Who cares?
But Herb, that could be for a number of reasons. That could be funding.
Who cares?
That could be advertising. That could be marketing. That could be that the station has other priorities.
Hold on a second, Herb. Hold on a second. Let's just say everything you're saying is correct. Who the F cares? I don't care about his ratings.
How's
the
it relevant?
Country doesn't care about his ratings. Either you like the show and you watch, or you don't like the show. That's not relevant, and that's not dangerous. If somebody on social media is saying Jimmy Kimmel's numbers are through the roof, by the way, they were yesterday. What's relevant is that the man who you voted for, which you will not call him out for, because you will not hold the Republicans responsible for anything, saying that elected Democrat officials are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. I find that to be far more serious and more dangerous than some people on social media that are lying about Jimmy Kimmel's ratings. Why is it, Herb, as we bring you back up, that you don't understand that?
Wait a minute, Brian, are you potting me down?
Herb, have a nice day. You're a waste of my Herb. You're a waste. No, Herb, I'm not potting you down. I'm disconnecting you because you're wasting our time and you're an idiot. That's why. It's one of the most anticipated monologues in late night TV history. Do you think he's going to continue to do what he's doing? I don't think he's going to apologize. And from everybody that I've heard, he is non-apologetic and he doesn't think he did anything wrong. I don't either. It doesn't seem like he's the guy that's going to apologize. In fact, do you think he actually takes it a step further tonight? Let's talk a little bit about Jimmy Kimmel. I know Jimmy Kimmel, met him multiple times, think he's a really nice guy. Didn't think he necessarily did anything wrong. He was mocking Donald Trump, talking about the ballroom when supposedly he's supposed to be grieving the loss of one of his really good friends in Charlie Kirk. Then he gets suspended. I'm wondering, I feel like Ron, MAGA did Jimmy Kimmel a favor because I believe his ratings tonight will be higher than ever. It's probably the most anticipated monologue of any late night talk show host for decades. And in the end, I actually think this is going to help Jimmy Kimmel. What are your thoughts on this scenario here?
Possibly. I mean, certainly you're right for like short-term wise. Mm-hmm. It depends on a few things, a couple things, I think. It depends on how Kimmel handles it. Kimmel cannot back down in any way. And the problem is that you have Sinclair and Nexstar who control 20% of the TV stations in the United States who are still refusing to carry his show. And they're in a dispute now with ABC over that. And so what they want, see, ABC says, we talked to Jimmy and they gave a bullshit statement. We talked to Jimmy and he's seen the light and he's learned the error of his ways. And we've had a bunch of heart to hearts with him. That's all bullshit. The reality is so many people were canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions, like millions of people. They had guests, hosts, celebrity guests canceling on them left and right. The publicity they were getting from and the hits they were getting from Congress and the media was just horrible, and they were just getting annihilated. And so I think they were forced to bring him back. But Sinclair and Nexstar, who are both owned by right-winger pro-Trump people, who both want to merge and take over other companies right now and need FCC approval to do that, are still not agreeing to put Kimmel on. And so the question becomes long-term. Is that going to get resolved? Because that definitely would hurt his show if so many of those local stations are not going to carry it. But really the person who has to fight that battle is ABC with their affiliates. ABC needs to body them and muscle them. We'll just see if they have the will to do that.
Ron, we've heard, well, no, this has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This is just the FCC. Can we just be honest here? This starts with Donald Trump. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah. But it's also Brendan Carr. Brendan Carr had this agenda for years. He talked about doing this. He wrote the Project 2025 section on the FCC. He served on the FCC at a lower level in the past. So, he's doing this he's going after Trump's enemies, but also this is a broader agenda that this is not just about Kimmel. This is a broader agenda that he has to radically transform media. If he had what he wants is to see people like Alex Jones, Jack Posobiec, Sean Hannity, Scott Jennings, all over network shows, these right-wing people that you see on social media that Trump is putting in his administration. He wants these people hosting Meet the Press. Right. And that is his goal. And to accomplish that, he is using the levers of government power. And every time one of these media companies caves to them, as they did at the beginning of the administration, it emboldens them. It makes them take bigger, bolder steps, more threats, more menacing. And so these guys are not going to back down until you punch back. And I think this was the first time anybody punched back. But I tend to agree with you. They're still hanging their hat on, these local affiliate conglomerates, which by the way should not be allowed. I mean, it's ridiculous how these media empires are being consolidated under people like Larry Ellison and others, that are, across multiple platforms, multiple networks. We never, ever allowed that in this country, but only in very recent years are we allowing this tiny handful. I think I saw the number, like now 7 corporations own like 90% of the media in the United States. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Completely ridiculous. I agree with you. What would you expect from Jimmy Kimmel tonight? Kind of a preview of his monologue. And I think he would agree with me. It's one of the most anticipated monologues in late night TV history. Do you think he's going to continue to do what he's doing? I don't think he's going to apologize. And from everybody that I've heard, he is non-apologetic and he doesn't think he did anything wrong. I don't either. It doesn't seem like he's the guy that's going to apologize. In fact, do you think he actually takes it a step further tonight?
Yeah. He can't apologize, because if he did what Sinclair was demanding, which is like apologize to Kirk's family and make a donation to Turning Point USA, I mean, that Kimmel would be finished. I mean, his entire audience would abandon him. So that was a non-option. So he can't do that. And he knows that. And I don't think he would be inclined to do that anyway. I mean, he's one of the few people who are like, have principles and stand up for what they believe in.
Yep. I'm with you.
I mean, I think Howard Stern is like that too, and that's why they're good friends. So, and Howard, by the way, has had many battles with the FCC himself during the Reagan years, and Bush years. But I think what he's going to do is this. I think he's going to clarify, to make this very clear, that he at no point ever attacked Charlie Kirk. He never did. He never said anything disparaging about Kirk, and that. What he was talking about was Donald Trump and the MAGA supporters who are weaponizing the Kirk assassination to try and blame Democrats for it. So I think what he will do is probably start out by making that clear, that he's very sorry about what happened to Kirk, that he doesn't want to see that happen to anybody, and he'll make it clear that nothing he ever said was about Charlie Kirk or his death. Right. And then I think he will launch an absolute missile at Trump, at Brendan Carr, at ABC even. I think he's going to start out with the little Kirk thing, and then he's just going to go postal. And I think people will love it.
I hope so. And I tend to think you're right on that. I think that's what he's going to do. So listen, I know the Charlie Kirk funeral was over the weekend, but I got to tell you, Ron, I appreciated Charlie Kirk's wife and the things she said. I thought she, what was maybe one of the better moments, for lack of a better term. She talks about how we can't hate people, and yet Donald Trump gets up there and talks about how he literally hates all of his opponents, assuming he's talking about Democrats. He hates Democrats in half the country. And don't even get me started with Stephen Miller's speech. You guys at MeidasTouch did a great job at covering this. Does it get any worse than that, Ron? I guess that's my question. When Donald Trump is speaking literally at a funeral, and he just can't help himself but divide the country further.
Yeah, because he has no empathy whatsoever. He doesn't care about people. People are fungible to him. In other words, the second, and we've seen this throughout for his whole entire life, the second that they are no longer useful to him, he discards them. It's like they don't exist anymore in his universe. So I believe, the only thing that he cares about in the context of Charlie Kirk is what this death can do for him, and what Turning Point, whatever's left of it, can do for him. And so what was bizarre to me was this is supposed to be a memorial service that featured none of Kirk's family except for his wife, who, by the way, is now CEO of Turning Point. But like, his parents were not heard from, his siblings were not heard from, his friends were not heard from. I mean, it was Erica Kirk, and then it was a collection of Trump administration officials and right-wing influencer grifters like Jack Posobiec. Yeah. So it was bizarre to me in that context. Like, it was like a Trump rally, not really a memorial service after Erica was done. Yeah. And I thought that was very bizarre. Yeah. Trump getting up there talking about, hating Democrats and going after Democrats and all that stuff. It's like,
classless.
Obviously they had a huge turnout. They had a lot of people that were definitely moved by what happened to him and showed up and in the middle of a football Sunday when the Cardinals were playing at the time,
Yeah.
you know, that was pretty significant.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with you there. By the way, we've just learned that Jimmy Kimmel is going to have your guy Gavin Newsom on the show tomorrow night, so that should be quite interesting. Oh, tonight actually. So tonight, Gavin Newsom's going to be on the show.
I heard
That's
that rumor, but I didn't know it was confirmed.
It's official now. Yeah, Gavin
I think
Newsom.
that's a really good move.
I agree.
Because that will infuriate Trump and Carr
Yeah.
more than anything more than anybody else he could bring on,
agree.
except maybe Stormy Daniels.
Right.
He's already done that a few times.
He's already done that. Yeah, that all those interviews are always interesting.